to another edition of the Bruce and Bob Show. Bob Mueller with News 2. Bruce Doby, national media entrepreneur. We're here from Jimmy Kelly's Steakhouse in downtown Nashville to talk some politics. And we have a sponsor, Hall Strategies, which is fantastic, supporting our cause to try to talk some politics. What do Hall Strategies do?
Hall Strategies, Joe Hall, everybody knows Joey. Joey was a former reporter at the Nashville Business Journal, then went into business on his own. And they do communications work, and they do PR work, and they do some lobbying work. Great guy, and Joe is real into our show, and so Joe has bought a sponsorship for 4 shows.
Well, that's fantastic. We appreciate
that.
Busy week, historic week, whether you're a Democrat or not a Democrat, or whether you're Republican or not a Republican. The ceiling was broken last night as Hillary Clinton officially became the presumptive Democratic nominee, the first woman to win a major presidential party nomination. Pretty historic night.
A very historic night, and she harkened back to the Seneca Falls movement in the 1850s. I mean, she went way back. Interesting though. Recall when Barack Obama got the nomination almost 4 years ago to the day.
8 years ago, yeah.
Did he mention being African American and that it was the first time an African American
was mentioned? I don't think he did, though. I think you're right.
But never to the extent that she's calling out every possible female voter.
She is running as a woman this time.
She is running as a woman. He did not run as a black man. She is running as a female.
She didn't run as a female. She ran as a statistician and an experienced politician 8 years ago.
Right.
It's a different campaign. It's a
right.
softer campaign. It's a different Hillary Clinton. And I think that the field, once it became pretty clear that she was probably going to be the nominee, I think that she embraced the historic aspect of it.
Yes, I think so. And another interesting thing about last night, and you were up late watching it, as was I. It was so much. But you know, that gender guard, back to that, my wife and daughter were jumping all over the house. They were so excited. But she never mentioned foreign policy last night. It was all Donald Trump is temperamentally unsuited to be president of the United States, and I got your back. So that real middle class clarion call, and look, this is going to be an aggressive campaign, and I'm going after Trump big time. That's what I heard.
I don't disagree. I don't want to back up one more step, because I have a daughter, you have daughters, people with daughters. Forget the label. It was a really cool night. My daughter texted me and said, "Isn't this cool?"
Yeah.
And I think that anybody who's a parent, anybody who's a niece and whatever, a daughter, a child, looks at this and, again, forget the party, but look at the accomplishment. And that is a big break that now you can tell your daughter, yes, you can be at least the nominee to be president of the United States. So I think that was a really historic night.
Yeah, it really was. And Nicole Miller, the Republican talking head on MSNBC, when she's talking about that, because she's moved to persuaded at least, or inclined to speak well of Republicans and not well of Democrats. She just went on and on and on and on about the historic nature of the moment. So obviously and clearly a big night.
And the message was sent clearly that she congratulated Bernie Sanders. She did not ask move for him to move out of the race, but the calls were made between the president and Secretary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, and it seemed obvious if you saw his speech last night that while he mentioned Donald Trump some, he did not mention Hillary Clinton by name. He congratulated her and then moved on and talked about the efforts of the movement to move forward. So I think we're going to hear more this week, certainly next week, from Bernie Sanders as they try to unify. And you listen to the talking heads, the Democrats last night, that are saying it's already unified, that we're there. I don't think they are.
No, they're not.
But that, especially with millennials, and there's a lot of issues that they don't want to talk about that are real issues for her. Yeah. She hasn't got the excitement movement that Trump has. So she had a great night in California, a bigger win than she thought she was going to get, which is a positive, I think, for her, because California is that kind of slice of America in a smaller version. So that's a plus. But she still needs to get some excitement around her, and she needs to rally some young people. She needs Bernie Sanders for that to happen.
No, clearly not an exciting, riveting orator in the Barack Obama model, and she needs to borrow a page from her husband's campaign, who was such a great speaker. Interestingly, you saw Trump come after the Bernie Sanders support last night. That makes complete sense.
It does.
The system is rigged. Right, outsiders, the outsider campaign.
Philosophy's different, but there's some common ground.
Yeah, you've got over 10 million votes out there that are up for grabs, and it's whether Hillary gets them or Donald Trump gets them, who knows?
Our guest later, Ryan Haynes, the chair of the state Republican Party. We're going to talk politics, Republican locally and nationally. And nationally, it was a different Donald Trump. We've seen this one other time where a call it what you want. They muzzled Donald Trump. They had him on teleprompter. They had him on script. He read the script. He did it. He's done that one other time. The next day, he went back to being Donald Trump. We'll see what happens today. But he was talking more about policy. He was talking more about reasons for him. He wasn't talking about his personal lawsuit and those kinds of issues that has caused issues with the party. We saw Paul Ryan yesterday, the Speaker of the House, who just days before had endorsed Donald Trump or said he would vote for Donald Trump, saying this was a textbook example of racism. So there's some big divide there. We saw Bob Corker, senator from Tennessee, who has not said he will endorse Donald Trump, but has reached out foreign policy-wise, looking a little ashen when he was talking about the comments that Trump made. So there's still this problem that needs to be rectified if they're going to move forward with his nomination.
Yeah, and I mean, the way I read it, he's damned if he does, and he's damned if he doesn't. That is to say, he's damned if he's muzzled and he's reading off a teleprompter because he's inauthentic and scripted, right, and he doesn't get the masses who voted for him for precisely the opposite reason, which is that impromptu, vulgar, you know, whatever it is,
what people think they want to hear,
or whatever comes to mind, yeah. and so, but that gets him in trouble. So they've got such an insurmountable challenge that I don't see how they pull it off. If he's scripted, he's screwed. If he's unscripted, he's screwed as well.
What we're seeing too is there really is a huge difference between a primary and a general election. It's a huge difference.
Yeah.
The audience, the voting public, is just a different animal.
Yeah.
And whether the Republicans can coalesce around and move him in a direction that attracts the 15 million people that always decide these elections, the undecided out there, that's what's going to decide.
Yeah. I thought the optics were so interesting last night. You had Hillary Clinton for the first time really speaking to a huge hall with those 3 big American flags and a packed audience. And then you had Donald Trump who scaled it down. Normally he's the guy who's got the flags and the this and the bunting and everything.
Him, and that was it.
Yeah, the family behind him and 6 flags, and it looked kind of much less than what he's, you know, than he normally likes to surround himself with. So the optics seemed to favor Hillary last night.
Both speeches, too, were complete different speeches. Hillary Clinton was softer. She didn't yell the criticism she has that she yells too much. She let the microphone do its job, as it were. And Donald Trump, of course, was kind of prepared script and read that and pretty much stayed on. Let's get Ryan Haynes in. Ryan Haynes is the chair of the state Republican Party here in Tennessee. You've had that job about a year now?
Absolutely.
Congratulations.
Yeah, long year.
Yeah, it's been an interesting year.
Thank you for joining us. We had Mary Mancini on last week. She, of course, is your polar opposite. She's the chair of the state Democratic Party here in Tennessee. And her challenge, as she talked to us, is trying to move your supermajority away so she can get some Democrats on the state legislature and Congress, which you have the supermajority. I mean, you hold the majority in Congress, both houses of the legislature, the governor's office, lieutenant governor's office. You have the power right now. So I guess the hard part for your job is you don't want to mess it up. You don't want to start losing those. How do you go about in an election year like this where all your House members are up, part of the Congress is up, and some of the Senate is up, to keep those messages strong, to keep those seats strong when you know you're going to get outside challenges from the Democrats?
Well, Bob, I'm very lucky because our record of accomplishment, it speaks for itself. If you look at what we've been able to do under the leadership of Governor Bill Haslam, Speaker of the House Beth Harwell, and Lieutenant Governor Ramsey, and these strong Republican supermajorities, it's an impressive record. We've got record job growth in the state of Tennessee. We're consistently ranked one of the #1 places to do business. We've cut taxpayers. You contrast that to what the liberal President Obama has done. It's very different. They can't even balance their budget. We now have a AAA bond rating from all the rating agencies, fastest achieving results in education than any other state in the nation. That's an impressive track record. So I think what we have to do is just go out there and talk about what it is that we've done, and that message will sell, and I think we'll actually pick up seats in the state legislature this November.
Chairwoman Mancini took the opposite tack from you, of course. She predicted actually a net gain of Democrats in the legislature. In large reason, she says that Speaker Harwell has turned a blind eye to what amounts to a 4-year fraternity party up at the Hill. Her words and her candidate's words, not mine. She says that the sexual harassment that has gone on amounts to, is tantamount to Harwell's really a need to throw her out of office. How do you think the Republicans have run amok? is this sexual harassment stuff limited to the one legislator up there? And how do you respond to her comments in general?
Well, first off, I think they have to make stuff like that up and try and generate controversy because they can't run on their record. And you compare that to our records that I just cited, they know, hey, they've got a winning message. So I think they have to personally attack people. And it's a shame because we should try and rise above that in politics. I also think they don't want to address their own issues that they have. They actually have a state legislator that I serve with who has been indicted for some corruption issues, tax issues. Not a single one of the Democratic leaders has called for him to resign. When our members have misbehaved, we've stood up and said, hey, we're going to step in and address that. Look at what's happened down in Shelby County. One of their party leaders down there was indicted. You now have issues with the Chattanooga mayor down there. There's all kinds of controversies, and you don't hear one word out of them. And I just don't think that's leadership. You look at what Beth Harwell did. She stood up while accomplishing all these great things and address these issues head on, and they're going to continue to deal with it. And I think it's an isolated incident, and the overwhelming majority of those people that serve up there, very good people, and that's why we're seeing the results we're seeing.
Obviously, everyone's innocent until proven guilty. The investigation that Jeremy Durham, who we're talking about, is going on. But are you concerned about the allegations against him, about women coming forward, about the AG saying, we've talked to 34 different women here who said these kinds of activities were taking place? I mean, that has to at least concern the fact that you don't want this taking place, regardless of party, anybody to be doing these kinds of activities.
Absolutely we don't, and that's why we've shown the leadership the Democratic Party has not. We called on that individual legislator to resign. It's now ultimately going to be up to his voters' decision. He's chosen not to do that, and the voters will get the final say, and they'll make that call. But once again, I think it goes back to the leadership our leaders shown. Governor Bill Haslam, Lieutenant Governor Ramsey, Beth Harwell, we stood up and said, this is wrong, it needs to be addressed. You don't hear that out of the Democrats, and I think that's disturbing. And I quite frankly think that's why they lost power. Whether it be, John Ford and the Tennessee Waltz corruption years ago, and now what you see happening on them, they just remain silent on it. And instead they try and lob personal attacks at some of the leaders who have these great records of accomplishment. So it really is disappointing. But like I said, they don't have anything to run on. The Democratic Party, I think, has gone so far to the left. You think one of the major contenders for president was a self-avowed socialist that actually that honeymooned in the Soviet Union in the Democratic Party. They're embracing that, and so I think that's why their message doesn't sell in Tennessee.
So, is Donald Trump giving you fits?
Well, look, I think what's happened out there is people are so frustrated with the liberal policies that have come out of Washington that right now they're willing to give an outsider a chance, and you can't blame them. The Republicans in Congress have tried to stop President Obama's radical agenda, whether it be health care, just this nonsense about what bathrooms people use. I mean, it's just gotten carried away, and it seems like we've lost all common sense. I think people are saying, hey, we're going to go a different direction. We want somebody who's actually ran a business rather than be a community organizer, somebody that has had results. And I think that's why our elected leaders thrive. That's why Senator Bob Corker thrives in this state. Bill Haslam, I can go on down the list.
I don't disagree, and I think Donald Trump may have been able to run away with this election if, and the big if is, of course, some of the comments he made.
Sure.
How do you rectify, his criticism of Muslims, his criticism of Hispanics, his criticism of women, his criticism of this judge on a personal issue? And yet, I understand the folks who see his success and see him as wanting to change some things. And he has some differences with the Republican Party concerning funding for Planned Parenthood aspects, concerning cuts to social programs. So it's not an all down the line issue. Does that make it even tougher for you? And how do you support someone? How do you get past those remarks?
Well, I think once again, I'm going to go back to what I've been saying over and over. When our leaders step out of lines and they step out of bounds, we call them out on that. Donald Trump made comments about Muslims earlier this year. As a state party chair, I stood up and said, hey, that's inappropriate and that's wrong. But once again, when the Democrats make it inappropriate, they embrace them. They continue to shield them. That's not real leadership. I think Senator Corker said it the best. Right now, there's no doubt about it. Donald Trump is still formulating a lot of his policies, a lot of his thoughts. And this is a rare window right now where we have an opportunity to try and influence which direction he goes. That's what our party's doing right now. But if you listen to a lot of the stuff that's being said in the media, it sounds like the Republican Party's dead. But Bob, you just said it. You look at the majorities we hold here in the state. We overwhelmingly control the United States Congress. We overwhelmingly control the governorships all around this country. The Republican Party is strong and thriving, and I think that's because average Americans they want somebody that that wants to let the free enterprise unleash itself. They want more freedom. They don't want more government regulations. They don't want more scandals. And that's why we're thriving. And so the Republican Party, I think, stronger than ever. And I'm confident this November voters are going to rebuke Hillary Clinton overwhelmingly.
You quoted Bob Corker. One of the other things he said yesterday was that he gives Donald Trump 2 to 3 weeks to get his act together. And then if he doesn't, well, he didn't say what happens if he doesn't.
Several of the leaders are kind of saying, it's time, or we're going to be backing up.
Every talking head on TV last night was saying that there is a slight chance that Trump may not wind up being the nominee. Do you see any environment in which he does not become the nominee?
I don't. I think he's going to be the nominee.
Are you voting for? Are you a superdelegate?
I am not. We don't have superdelegates in the Republican Party. I'm actually a committed delegate to Marco Rubio. So right now, that's where my vote lies.
Okay.
But I do. I think he's going to be the nominee. But I think it's important to remember. Look at all these other leaders, like Paul Ryan stepping up there yesterday. I mean, what a great person to admire. And to when we have differences with our nominee, I think we need to say that, and we'll continue to do that. And what my job is to protect all of the Republicans that are out there and continue to push forward our policies. Oftentimes, our candidates don't always 100% align with the platform. My job is we'll continue to push good conservative policies like we've seen here in Tennessee. They work, and that's what we'll do, and I think the voters will see that come November.
I know you're not going to support Hillary Clinton, but your thoughts on the first woman presidential nominee. And here in Tennessee, your party, Susan Richardson, was the first woman head of the Republican Party. Beth Harwell, the first woman speaker in Tennessee. So those barriers have been broken here locally. Again, forget the party, the barriers broken nationally for women to become president. Your thoughts on that?
It's a historic moment, and I cannot deny that. I think it's a great moment. I was with a friend last night who was, it was a fascinating moment to watch. But I think the thing that's sad about it is here the first female nominee for a party, a major party, has approval ratings that are well under 50%. The controversy continues to surround her, whether it be her decision making, how she runs her life. It's just there's constant a cloud of controversy over her, and I think that's sad that we're seeing that out of the first female. Contrast that to Tennessee. These local leaders, we've said here, the Democrats controlled this state for well over 100 years, and the instant the Republican Party came into power, what we do? We put a female into a position of leadership, and she's led with great distinction and honor. She's a wonderful woman. We have 2 members of our congressional delegation, Congressman Diane Black and Congressman Marsh Blackburn, doing outstanding work. We have a lot of female superstars out there, and I think you're going to continue to see them rise, and Republican women are going to continue to break through the ranks, break through, and make us all proud as Tennesseans.
There's already talk about the U.S. Senate race, Corker seat, and Haslam vacating the governor's office. You're in a position to probably hear every candidate's potential candidate looking at both of those seats. Can you share some of those with us?
Well, I think we've got a very deep bench.
You got a huge bench.
We've got a huge bench.
Very deep bench.
And I'm confident we're going to continue to send those leaders back up to Washington. They're going to be Republican leaders that really are in that same mold of Howard Baker. People that are true statesmen that make us proud. And if you look at that bench, those are the kind of people that are coming up through the ranks. You mentioned Governor Haslam, Senator Corker not running. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I assume Senator Corker's going to continue to run. He's in a very influential position as the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. So I would actually be surprised if he chose not to run. I think that's just kind of the rumor mills that run around Capitol Hills and the politicos. I think he runs again, but contrast our bench to the Democrats' bench.
Yeah.
It's not very deep.
Yeah.
They're going to continue to have long-term problems in this state because they're just not producing leaders that really are reflective of the population here in Tennessee.
Finally, you may disagree with me, but it seems like in Tennessee, Democrat or Republican, we elect moderates to the legislature, or to the Congress and to the governor's office. And legislature right now, anyway, is a more conservative. Does that cause your party a problem?
No, I don't think so at all. And I think if you look at all the candidates that we have, they're all very conservative. I think Bill Haslam, Senator Corker, Lamar Alexander, and the legislature, they have a record of tax cuts, limited government, letting sure personal freedom thrives, and we'll continue to see that out of the Republican Party here.
Ryan Haynes, Chair of the State Republican Party. Appreciate you coming by the
Absolutely. Thank you all very much.
Nice
we appreciate it. Absolutely.
That will do it for another edition of the Bruce and Bob Show. For Bruce Berry, Bruce Doby. Sorry about that. I changed your name. I changed his name.
And thanks to Hall Strategies.
Bob Mueller from Jimmy Kelly's Steakhouse, and we thank Hall Strategies for being one of our sponsors. We'll see you back here again next week for another edition of the Bruce and Bob Show.